All right, what's going on, winners? Hey, Coach JC here, and I'm super stoked and excited today. Man, I have a special guest in the house for you. I'm going to bring him on the screen right now just because he is one of the best looking. I don't, I mean, listen, I don't know what happened, but God definitely blessed him with some really good looks. I'm a little jealous of that. But without further ado, man, I'm bringing Yahya on the screen right now. We're going to introduce him in a minute. This is my new friend. And before you get started, if you are a frequent listener to the Win All Day podcast, then you know we start every podcast off with the Win All Day winning confession. We believe there's power in your words. So wherever you are today, listening from or watching, we're going to ask you to repeat after me. Today is my day.
Today is my day.
Nothing will get in my way
Nothing will get in my way
of me being the best
of me being the best
version of me.
version of me.
I am here on purpose.
I am here on purpose.
I have a purpose.
I have a purpose.
I am strong.
I am strong.
I am passionate.
I am passionate.
I am fearless.
I am fearless.
I choose faith.
I choose faith.
I am a winner.
I am a winner.
I will win
I will win
and win all day.
and win all day.
I love it, baby. I love it. This is my guy, Yahya, on the call, and I'm going to introduce him in a minute with a formal introduction. But let me say this first, man. I could just tell how you said the Win All Day winning confession. Dude, I am so fired up for today. And I want to say this. This has been a long time coming, I believe. For years, you've spoke all over the world. I've spoken all over the world. People have come up to me and said, Coach JC, you got to meet this guy. Like you two are like, I think you're like brothers. You just didn't know it. And this is what they would always say. I promise you, this is the one guy, like he's gonna match your energy. And I'm like, come on, I've heard that before. Stop with it. But we got to meet a couple years back at an event down in Texas, and I
Yes.
got to just spend a little time with this young man, and I learned that he's got big energy. You saw it from the Win All Day Win Confession. We might talk today where that energy comes from, but most importantly, I saw a big heart, man. And he's a great looking guy, a lot of charisma. I noticed he had a whole sleeve tattoo like me and big muscles. And I was like, man, this dude is the real deal. But most importantly, I saw a deep love at that event for people and I would say purpose. This guy was intentional. And so I believe what everybody said at that point. I'm like, this might be my twin brother. I'm Italian. I don't know if he's Italian, but I'm going to ask him. And so I felt the constant, like an immediate connection with his heart. And then I started to dig a little deeper and I watched you go through this journey over 2 years, man. And I just saw how the Holy Spirit and the presence of God came over you and it just took your purpose to a whole nother level. So I just say, man, I'm grateful to have you. You're the real deal. You're a man of God. And I believe that you're a powerful voice in the marketplace for such a time as this. So I'm super stoked, man, to get in and introduce you. But this is Yahya Bakkar. He is a family man, business mentor, and he is the secret weapon behind many leaders who want to build a movement behind their message. He's the author of Chosen, which we will get into his new book, which I'm stoked about, and the founder of Fruitful Father Ministries, which is a ministry that disciples marketplace leaders to be who God called them to be. He has spoken on over 500 stages. And when he's not with his family, he's usually mentoring leaders in the areas of money that money cannot buy. And you're going to learn a lot about him. But I do want to say this. I said when he's not with his family, he has one of the most beautiful families you've ever seen. His kids are gorgeous and his wife's beautiful. And so without further ado, Win All Day family, please welcome to the Win All Day podcast, my friend, Yahya Bakkar. What's up, my man?
What's up, dude? I am pumped. Let's go. I don't know if the listeners can feel the energy that's on this meeting. It's an anointed meeting, and if they stay and listen throughout the whole thing, I promise they're going to get more than they bargained for or expected. And so thank you for that introduction. And wow, like I usually get complimented for being the hype person or the host or the person who introduces people and make them feel amazing. I never got to experience what that felt like on the other side until today. So I feel honored, and it's a privilege and an honor to be here to serve your audience, man. And so I'm excited for us to finally do this. It's been a long time in the making, and even though we met at this event You have such a superpower by making the person that you're speaking to feel like the most important person in that room. And I felt that in your presence when we were there. And so whatever you saw in me, I promise you, I see in you as well. And so I'm
I'm loving
excited.
it. I'm grateful you
Excited.
said that. Super stoked, man, to jump in. And I do believe this is going to be a divine appointment for many people listening. And we're both Jersey boys, grew up in Jersey.
Yeah.
And I know we've spoken on stages, what you just said, and we both have been blessed with a gift, I think, of appreciation and showing value to other people. And we've been asked to MC many events because of that, right? Gifting. And so I just want to give you this moment. I gave you a kind of a formal introduction. But there's so much to your story, man. I would just like to give this opportunity. Introduce yourself. Tell a little about where you come from, how we got to where we are today, and then we'll jump in, my man.
Wow. Well, I don't even know where to start. I feel like I'm a nobody who met somebody who died for everybody so that
Come
they
on.
can be part of his body. Right. And so that's in one sentence, that's how I would describe my entire life right now. But the beginning of my journey in the flesh, I should say, I was born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, to a Muslim Syrian father and a Buddhist Thai mother who converted to Islam from my dad. Um, After a few months, they split up, and I grew up not knowing who my birth mother was. My dad got married a few different times. To date, he got married 12 times, but his third wife was a US citizen who was raised in Iraq, and she fell head over heels for my dad. Because my dad looks like this, I don't know if you ever watched Pretty Woman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you look at me, I kind of look like people don't, they think I'm Spanish or Asian, persuasion,
Yeah.
something like that. My dad has dirty blonde hair, pale skin. He looks like Richard Gere from Pretty Woman.
Oh, wow.
So so he had that pull, like the George Clooney vibe, and my stepmother fell head over heels for him, and she was like, "Hey, let me take care of your son and bring him to the United States while you build your empire here in the Middle East." And so when I was 5 years old, I came to New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, where you're from. I grew up in Patterson, New Jersey, so we're about 30 minutes away from each other. We both like, we don't want to tell everybody, but we both watched an episode of Jersey Shore right before we
All
got.
day, all day.
Jim-
TTL, baby. Let's
I was
go.
just gonna
It's
say
the
Jim Taylor
perfect
Laundry.
best of them, baby.
Right. So we I grew up, I was raised by an Arabic family, right? And like pretty early on, um, I didn't know where to fit in or what was going on. Like I wasn't emotionally mature enough or psychologically aware enough to realize what was happening. But I was raised by my stepmother who raised me as her own son, thank God, and she did an amazing job at that. She brought me on into the family, and despite her doing a phenomenal job, there were those, unanswered questions that I grew up with, like who am I? Where do I really belong? I couldn't necessarily fit in with the crowd. I grew up with diversity, like
Yeah,
Newark and Patterson are almost very similar.
yeah.
So I grew up with people from all different types of nations and walks of life, um, and then I grew up in the Muslim faith. When I was 11 years old, my father decided to come back into the picture. And he was busy building his wealth in the Middle East. And then he started preparing me to manage the family wealth in this sense. So I'm the oldest of 8 brothers and sisters. He was very busy when he wasn't in the picture. And I'm going to talk a lot about my dad today, but I just want everybody to hear me and hear my heart. I love my father, and I'm thankful for my dad to this day. And if there's one thing that I've learned is that he taught me what not to do and who not to be,
Come
and
on.
and to also give grace because we all are benefactors of God's grace,
Come on.
right? And so in a lot of ways, my journey from my teenage years to my 20s to now in my 30s, um, my father has been the foundational pillar for me to understand, who I am and whose I am in that process, whether he realized it or not, right? And so the model that he gave me of who not to be in a relationship or in the business world is the model that I've embodied, right? To become who he wasn't for me. Right. So in my 20s, my dad was all about business. My dad became a very, very successful businessman in the Middle East. Um, Different ventures, a portfolio of companies, counsel. most people don't know this about me, like, because I don't advertise this because it's nobody's business. My dad is a very private guy, but he's worked with some royal families and consulted some of the heavy hitters in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And in my teenage years, I would be on calls in board meetings with attorneys, accountants, advisors. And when we talk about wealth and building generational wealth, there's different levels of wealth as we understand, right? There's the first generation of wealth creators, then there's a second generation of successors, and then there's the third and the fourth. And the skills to build that wealth is different than the skills of keeping that, right? And sustaining that long term. And so my dad was preparing me to be a successor of that family wealth, to understand the different types of businesses, what is required, and to one day kind of pass on that information when it comes to inheritance, right? And in the Islamic law, you receive your inheritance if you're a Muslim, right? And so throughout that journey in my teen years, my dad was preparing me to become the successor, but at the same time, he wanted me to become a devout Muslim. And I was a devout Muslim until I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife,
Mm.
right? She was Christian. I met her when I was 15 years old. She was 14. She came from a great family. I came from a family that was kind of broken. And so I guess psychological patterns are drawn to those type of makeups. And there was a purity and a grace that she carried that I was drawn to, and that I felt like was lacking in my life. And her father and I, he thought I was a terrorist at first because I told him my name, and then and then and then he was like, "My ain't no daughter of mine dating a terrorist." I was like, "Be careful! I know where you live. I can bomb your house right now." Right? So
So he wasn't traveling with you and going on any plane rides anywhere.
oh no, definitely not. And this was like at the height, like right after 9/11. But I joke around, but he's like a father to me. My father-in-law is like a father to me in many ways. We share the same exact birthday. So I thought it was like it's very prophetic and poetic that we have the same exact birthday, but he's blonde hair, blue eyes from Netherlands,
Yeah.
and I am who I am, the United Nations in one family, right? And so he came in as like a father figure that I didn't have while I was trying to win the approval of my dad in that process. And so by fast forward at around 17 years old, I realized that I really wanted to date this girl that I kept a secret, and my dad would not accept her. And so we just secretly decided to both leave our religions. She left Christianity, I left Islam, and we fought for our love together.
Wow.
And around that time, once we made that decision, my stepmother, who I was living with, she was moving to Arizona, and so we had to make a decision whether we were going to fight for our love together or not. And I said, let's just do it. Like, what else we got to lose? We made it this far. We've had all these conversations. Like, I know we're young. I know most people would be like, no, you're single, ready to mingle, go do your thing. You're young, good looking, whatever. But I knew what I wanted early on, which was a family. And I wanted to become a father, and I saw me growing with her. And so we decided to bite the bullet, make that commitment, do long distance, and I learned how to love without physical intimacy in that relationship, and have communication as the backbone of our relationship. And it was a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways because it caused me to mature at an early age. Around that time, I told my dad the news that I didn't want to manage the family wealth. And he was like, well, what are you going to do? I built this whole thing for you. You're supposed to be the successor. I said, well, it's too much pressure. I don't want to let you down. When in reality, I didn't want to move in that direction because I secretly left the religion. And at that time, I got really good at living a double life, meaning around him, I would walk on eggshells, pretending to be someone that I wasn't, just to win his acceptance and approval that I confused for love. And and I thought if I just pray 5 times a day when he's in the picture, or I fast during Ramadan, everything would be good. But on the inside, I'm dating this girl who's not any faith now, and someone that I love head over heels. And I left the religion, and I don't want him to know that because he would disown me. And the reason why that was like a big deal, because growing up not knowing who my birth mother was, and him not raising me as much, and me being raised by my step family, he was the only blood that I was connected to. So there was a deep fear of abandonment and rejection that I was battling with early on.
Mm.
And if he knew the truth about where I stood, um, I thought he wouldn't love me anymore and he would disown me. And so I lived a double life for quite some time. I would say the right things in front of him, but I would walk on eggshells. And in that process, I would, be the best man that I could be for my girlfriend and figure things out. And so I went to school to become a doctor because that's what he wanted me to do. He said, if you're not going to be, manage the family wealth, then you're going to become a doctor. And no, I sacrificed too much to bring you to America,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so that's every, first generation immigrant. They deal with this, whether you're from India, from Asia, from Middle East. You're either going to become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, right? And so I went on that path to become a doctor. I got a 4.0 GPA. I, was good everything, but deep down inside, there was something that was missing. And I would say when I entered my 20s, my 20s was my decade of self-discovery. And I had a full scholarship to ASU because of my grades but deep down inside, I had this like spiritual hunger. And so I went and I Googled like personal development in spiritual schools. And I found the school in Iowa, Fairfield, Iowa, called Maharishi University of Management. Now I think it's MIU, Maharishi International University. But it was like this hippie school where people from different walks of life come and they want to grow spiritually. And they taught meditation there. Right. So
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, like all these personal development and spiritual books. I read a book called Conversations with God, and I was so open to different schools of thought and different walks of life. And I never like I didn't want to be like in any religion. I was just like seeing the universe and law of attraction and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I did. So I ended up going to the school through a stipend. They basically paid for me to go visit it for a weekend. I fell in love with it, and I left my full scholarship to go to the school. I got into debt to go to the school, and I still took my prerequisites there. And then fast forward 3 years into this, still doing long distance with Kate, my girlfriend who's now my wife. I'm in organic chemistry class. I remember this clear as day. And I have about 3 months left until I'm supposed to graduate with my bachelor's degree in physiology and health, right? And I heard a loud voice on the right side, right behind me, saying, "This is not for you. This is for your father. Leave."
Mm.
And I look back, and there was nobody close enough to me to whisper that in my ear. So I was caught off guard. I was like, I had chills all over my body. I left the class. I went into my dorm room, and I was like, that voice was so convicting, but it was scary because in my mind, it challenged my identity and my sense of security, which was plan A, get a degree, make my dad proud, right? I didn't have a plan B. And so I cried like in fetal position in the corner of my dorm room because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. But that voice was so powerful and profound that I couldn't not listen to that. So I went to my guidance counselor and I just said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to drop out of college." She's like, "What do you mean? You have 3 months left. Just finish out and get your bachelor's degree. You're already in $50,000 of student loans. You might as well just use it." I was like, I can't explain it. I just have to leave.
Yeah.
That was in December of 2010. And I flew out to Arizona. I told my stepmom. My stepmom said that was a dumb idea. Then I go to New Jersey. I go back to New Jersey. And this is after 5 years of being long distance with Kate. And I was like, let me start building this relationship. I wanted to be close to her. And I told my dad the news. And when I told my dad the news, my dad was like, "Go back and finish what you started, or you're not staying in this house." And I said, "I can't do that." And I couldn't explain why I couldn't do that, but I couldn't do that. And then my friend invited me to his home. He heard about my situation. And then he was like, "Yeah," I was 21 years old at the time. This was in January of 2011. My friend Mike, who comes from an Italian, he's from Napoleon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Naples. And so he's like, he's known me since I was 14 years old. And he was like, "Yeah, I think you should become a motivational speaker and life coach for young people." And I'm like, dude, that's such a dumb idea. No one's gonna listen to a college dropout give life advice. What I haven't even lived anything. He's like, since I've known you, you're a positive guy. You like to help people, and you got a big mouth. You might as well get paid for it, right? And I was like, I don't know, man. And he's just like, just sleep on it. So I slept on it, and the next day I googled motivational speaking life coaching programs for young people, and I found two programs. One was called Youth Speaker University by the founder. His name is Josh Shipp, and the other was called Robbins Madonna's Training by Tony Robbins. We all know Tony Robbins, right?
Absolutely.
And I look at both of the programs. It was like $9,000, and I'm a young college dropout with $50,000 of student debt, no job, no degree, 47 bucks in my bank account. I don't have, $9,000. And I start thinking like this is a scam. They're trying to charge people, da, 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 like all these things, in the very beginning. Um, but then I was like, I looked up Tony Robbins. I didn't know who he was, but somebody said similar to how like people connected us, like, oh, you guys have similar energies. Somebody said your energy is like Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me look up this guy on YouTube. So I go on YouTube and I look up, Tony Robbins, and there was a video called Resources versus Resourcefulness. And he talks about it's not about having the resources, it's about being resourceful. Money is just one resource, but you have time, you have energy, you have attention. Are you willing to be resourceful to get what you say you want? So I was like, I got convicted. I was like, all right, I'm going to call a bunch of people and I'm going to tell them I'm going to become a motivational speaker and life coach for young people, and they're going to give me money to fund my dreams. Right. And so I did that, and a bunch of people thought I was crazy. Two people said, you know what? It took a lot of balls to do what you just did.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'll give you your 1,000, and another person gave me 3,000. I took that as a initial deposit to pay for both of the programs. And then within 1 year, I was the youngest graduate in the speaking program. And I had 40 paid speaking engagements there. I learned the art and the business of speaking, starting from scratch. I never even like spoke publicly before. My first speaking event was a paid speaking event. Like it was $100, but I got paid to practice
Yep.
there. And then I was the youngest graduate in Tony Robbins' coaching program at that time. I was 21, turning 22, and I got certified as a relationship educator and a strategic interventionist. And then, I mean, there's more. I mean, I want to give some breathing room there if you have any questions before I get to the next part, because I could talk for hours, right?
I love it, and there's so much more to cover, man. I love it. There's so many. It's funny because like I felt led. We're putting on an event called Wealth and Winning, and there's a whole movement behind why we're doing it. And as you talk more, I'm like, last week I hit you up and I was like, man, or 2 weeks ago, I was like, man, I feel like you need to come to this event. I don't know how we're gonna make it happen. The speakers are full, budget's done. But I was like, at least I just want to reach out. I just felt led. And the more you're talking, I'm like, I know exactly why. And Tony Robbins was the program that I joined after I read in his book the one quote, the meaning of anything in life only has a meaning you choose to give it. When I was $400,000 in debt, suicidal, depressed, in a custody battle after throwing away my basketball opportunity. And that birthed my relationship with Tony Robbins, who became a mentor. And that set me on this whole personal development, journey that now has become a movement and, business. And so I didn't even know we had that in common. I think really just, keep talking, man. Like I could touch on so many things, but I want you to just keep going because there's so much to the story. Like you have this divine like moment where God invades your life. I saw you get baptized and you went through this, this ministry you joined and met with a prophet and they spoke over your life and you just had this breakthrough moment where you and your wife kind of, got united and religion. It wasn't about religion any longer, but you actually became a Christian. And so I want you just to keep talking, get to that moment where you kind of, you kind of you had that divine moment, that divine intervention with God, man. I want to
Yeah.
get you.
So for some context before we get to that point, because I think it'll be important for the person listening to this to understand. And if there's anything that I want you to take away from my message is that, God has his hand on you before you even know him. And my testimony is living and walking proof of that, right? And so in my 20s, I think I should speak about when I was 25 years old. That was probably the biggest year of my 20s. Um, at that time, fast forward, I thought I was relatively successful in the sense of, becoming one of the top youth speakers in the country. I spoke on a bunch of high schools and colleges, even corporations, about leadership, overcoming adversity, success, all that kind of stuff. But my story was, hey, my father, you know, I don't have the best relationship with him now, and I didn't know who my birth mother was, and you don't have to become a statistic. That was kind of like my story, right? You can overcome adversity. When I was 25, I wrote a thank you letter to my birth mother for giving life to me. And I went on Facebook and I wrote, does anybody know how to translate the English language into the Thai language to help me find my mom? And I've been trying to look for my mom for years, but I've had no success. My friends were the ones that actually reignited that conversation. And they said, dude, you should totally do it. Right. And so this was on January 3rd of 2013. Yeah, around 2013, I believe. Yeah. And I wrote, one lady messaged me. I got a bunch of comments after that post, but one lady messaged me. She's someone that I met at a party in Fairfield, Iowa, at the school that I went to, the hippie school that I dropped out of, that I left. And I don't know her very well or anything like that, but she was like, "Hey, I saw your post. I think you should connect to my transcendental meditation teacher in Thailand. She's the head meditation teacher in Bangkok, Thailand." And I said, okay, reached out to this lady. It turns out that this lady has a history of reuniting parents and children after being separated for decades. And so, this lady has a brother who has the number one TV show. And his TV show has a history of reuniting parents and children after being separated for decades. On January 3rd of 2013, I wrote a thank you letter to help me find my mom, right? And it was just like, hey mom, thank you for giving life to me. Without you, I wouldn't have the life that I have right now. And so I went on Facebook and I wrote, does anybody know how to translate the English language into the Thai language to help me find my mom? And I got a bunch of comments like, oh, good luck, we wish you the best. And one lady messaged me, her name is Beth, and she's someone that I met at a party in the school that I went to where they taught meditation. And she was like, hey, I saw your post, can't make any promises, but reach out to my meditation teacher. She's the head meditation teacher in Bangkok, Thailand. So I reached out to this lady. Turns out that this lady has a brother who has the number one TV show in Thailand, and that show has a history of reuniting parents and children. So that TV host reaches out to me and says, we got your letter. We can't make any promises, but we'll do what we can to help you find your mom. Fast forward 3 weeks later, I get a call from my mom. And I thought I was in a dream when I got this call. I didn't think it was real because it was in the middle of the night. I ended up reuniting with her about a month later. And to make a long story even longer, uh, I bring my friends and Kate there because without them, I wouldn't. The Bible says there's no greater love than laying your life down for your friends. And my friends showed me that type of love in that moment. And so I went, reunited with her, got to meet my grandparents. I found out my grandfather was a general in the Air Force, and that's how they found my mom because the last name was a very popular name in Thailand. And so there's this show they called me the son of Thailand. Even though he's from America, he's the son of Saudi Arabia, he's the son of Thailand. And it was like such a weird moment because prior to that moment, the insecurities and the fears and the questions that I had about who am I, where do I belong, I thought if I found my mom, I can make sense of my life. Because you have to understand, if you put yourself in my shoes, there are certain things that I did that I didn't know where that came from. It didn't come from my dad.
Yeah.
Right. And there are certain foods that I like. And I was wondering, where did that come from? Right. And so when I went to Thailand, I'm like, whoa, this is why I like mangoes.
Yeah.
Wow, this is why I like this. And I got to see my family that looked like me. And it's funny because I thought that was going to be the missing piece to, my life. And, God has a way of doing things. A few months after that, what I thought was going to be the missing piece to everything became not what I thought it was. And there was some trauma that happened between my mom and I. And without saying anything negative or anything like that, hurt people, and um, what I expected, like she wasn't in the position to really mother me, or be I was looking for a mom, and it wasn't what I expected in that way. And so she left me a few months after that whole experience, and I felt really hurt by what happened. I was like, you know what? Let me start my own family. And so I proposed to Kate on our 10-year anniversary that year when I was 25. And I said, let me invite my father to come to my wedding. I invited my father to come to my wedding. And my father asked me, are you Muslim or are you not Muslim? And I lied to him initially, but then 3 days later, I told him the truth. And then he disowned me. And my biggest fear up until that point was for me telling my dad the truth about my spiritual beliefs. And when I told him the truth, he disowned me, and that meant more than, I'm not his son. That meant like you're disconnected. According to the Sharia law, you're disconnected completely. And I made it a vow to myself that I was going to be the father that he never was and build the family that I never had. And so from 25 all the way to, I would say, 30, it was like me using my own mind, will, and emotions, my own strength and willpower to become that version of success. And for me, I was never driven by becoming like a millionaire, or that type of success and multiple businesses or anything like that, because I've seen that being a witness to my dad. And I saw so many successful businessmen achieve success at the expense of their families, and I knew that that's something that I'd never wanted. So anything that I chased was only for one purpose, which is to have the right business model to become the best role model for the people that I love and that I care about. And so I pursued that first and foremost. And I got the money, I did all that kind of stuff, and I thought I had my version of success. And then when I was 30, I had my first daughter, Kaya, and Kaya was a mixture of Kate and Yaya. And at this time, I still don't know Jesus. I don't know. I'm not even looking for Jesus. I'm good. Everything is Gucci, as we like to call it. And something happened where I had my first daughter. The father in me came alive, and Kaya, I didn't know this because when we gave her the name, it was just like, my wife's name is Kate, my name is Yaya, Kate and Yaya Kaya, right? Then we found out it meant forgiveness. And then I started taking my relationship as a father very seriously. And I was like, I need to forgive my mom and my dad. And um, I had a moment being a father where the father in me was able to forgive the children and my parents
Mm,
for not knowing any better.
mm.
And I had so much empathy and understanding and compassion for my parents because they had me when they weren't ready for me,
Yeah.
right? And so that's when I just like, whoa, it just shifted. My prior to me being a father, I was coming from this hurt child who wanted to point a finger and say, you know what? I'm gonna do what you couldn't. Now that I became a dad, I was like, whoa, like I need to forgive my parents, not from a place of I'm better than you, but because we all need help, and we don't know sometimes, and that's okay, right? And so I went through a process of forgiveness again before Jesus came into the picture. I wasn't necessarily looking for that. And then 2020 happened. My twins were born in January 2020. And
Oh,
it kind of felt like we had, three kids, like
yeah.
triplets. We did have three kids, but it felt like we had triplets all at
Yeah.
once because they're like a year and some change apart, right? And we weren't expecting twins. If you want to tell God your plans, make a, he'll laugh at you, right? And
Really?
so we wanted three kids, but not all at once. And so when we had the twins, Taj and Amira, they were born, and something happened again where like inside of me, the protector and the provider in me came alive. And I started using my social media platform, talking about what I thought was going on before it became cool to be outspoken, right? And people thought I was going crazy because I'm this motivational, inspirational guy. Now I'm talking about politics and the truth. And I was having these visions and these dreams that I couldn't explain. And I would see the wealth transfer right before my eyes. Like I saw a major wealth transfer happening. I saw it generationally from baby boomers to millennials. I saw it geopolitically from the west to the east. I saw it technologically that, the most valuable companies are going to have a tech component. Those that weren't essential were going to. This is before it became public. And then
Mm.
I saw it spiritually too. I saw people taking God more seriously than ever. And I started using my social media platform to talk about these things. And I became very, how shall I say, protective of family wealth. And what my dad taught me in my teens, I started bringing that back
Mm.
into the conversation, talking about asset protection and, and trust and, like all these different things that most people who are in the world of wealth start talking about. And that whole journey from 2020, I believe that was my wake up call. The Bible says in Second Chronicles 20:20, those who believe in the Lord shall be established, those who believe in the prophet shall prosper. And I didn't realize, but that 2020 was perfect vision for God calling me into submission to the kingdom. But I was resistant because I was having dreams like I couldn't explain. And so much so that I was willing to move my whole family to Florida because of a dream.
Mm.
Like November of 2020, I woke up in this dream, and the fulfillment of that dream happened just a few weeks ago. I'll explain it. So I was in this huge mansion, but it was like an oceanfront, beach house. I thought it was mine, right? And I saw people like government leaders,
Mm.
politicians, celebrities, influencers all coming to me. And I thought in my mind it was like a mastermind type of vibe, like a Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
like this is going to be my house. They're going to come for a retreat and they're going to seek counsel for the areas that money can't buy, right? And in my mind, because it felt like my home, I thought it was my home. So I wake up from the dream and I tell my wife, I'm like, babe, I think we need to go to Florida. I don't say anything, it's God or anything. I say, I just had a dream. I think we need to move to Florida. And she's like, all right, babe, like whatever. I support you. Whatever we need to do, let's go. So within 3 months, we're down to Florida because of a dream, right? Now we've entertained having conversations of potentially moving to Florida, but that was like, it felt so, and I usually don't get dreams like that, right? It felt so uh, spiritual, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Came down, we moved to Florida, and then I wasn't necessarily actively looking for clients at that time, but somebody reached out to me. She wanted mentorship from me. And I just told her, I was like, listen, I'm not like in the coaching space. I'm taking a break from that. She's like, please, you came highly recommended by my business mentor. And I'm like, she's like, what's your day rate? I said, it's $50,000. I'm saying this like I think she's gonna, just to blow her off, right? Because I didn't want to waste time. So she's like, just send me your wire info. So I sent her my wire info. Next day I see 50K in my account. I'm like, okay, this lady is serious. I'm like, where do you want to meet up? She's like, well, let's just meet on my yacht. Right. And so I'm like, okay. So I go, I do a VIP day to help her with her brand and her business and her offering and that kind of stuff. And within 30 days, she ends up getting like a 5x return on her business. And she's like, her husband takes a liking to me because he's like, bro, I've been funding my wife's dreams for the last 3 years. It's been an expensive hobby. You're the only one that's gotten a return, right? Like, what do you know? And so I started telling him what I've done in the business world, blah, blah, blah. And then I started asking him questions about the wealth that he's built. And the way that I was asking those questions, it wasn't like a normal coach would ask a question. I was asking like very specific questions that an attorney would ask. Like, okay, so how are you holding your portfolio? What is this? Do you have this thing, this thing? This? He's like, how do you know how to ask these questions? Like, what do you know? I was like, well, my dad, that was his background. These were the conversations that I would be in meetings, and I just know the type of questions to ask. He's like, oh, that's very interesting. So they took a liking to me. They invited me into their dinner one day on their yacht with three other couples. And when we're sitting down, my client, she goes, yeah, the reason why we brought you here is because I believe Jesus is chasing you. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, but no thanks. Right. And then her husband starts saying, he's like, hey, so what's the deal with your dad? And I start telling him about my dad, but I had this sense of like pride and posture. Like I'm in my 30s. I thought I made it. I had a beautiful Rolex 41 millimeter presidential. And like I'm thinking like I'm bigger than I am. Right. And I'm like, I don't need my dad. I became the father that my dad couldn't be, blah, 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 blah. That night or drive back home, and my wife is quiet. It's late. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. We finally get in bed, and she's quiet the whole ride. And I live in Boca Raton, and so it was like from Fort Lauderdale to Boca Raton was like about 45 minutes. Quiet. We get in bed, tucking ourselves in, and then she's like, "What was that about?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What was what about?" She's like, "The last time I see you try to win approval from another man was in front of your dad."
Wow.
And I'm like, I got, like I puffed up. I'm like, I don't need no approval from any other man. Like, I'm Yaya, right?
Yeah.
Like, who, 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 I don't need no approval. I went to the bathroom just because I just needed some space.
Mm.
I came back and I was like, babe, you know what? You're right. I was, I wasn't being myself. I was, she's like, babe, I don't care about being right. I just like people who love you, they love you for who you are, not what you have or what you've done. You don't have to posture. I was like, yeah, you're right. I took a few steps back and I kid you not, God is my witness. I felt a touch on my heart, like a push, a gentle push. My back hits the wall. I fall to the ground. My knees buckle. Like I just drop and I'm crying for like 10 minutes.
Mm.
And I haven't cried like that probably since I was a kid, right? And I don't understand what's happening, right? I don't have the words to explain it. But in my mind, all I'm thinking is like, I need a father figure. Here I am, a grown man, 30, 30, I think I was 32 or 33 years old. 30, yeah, I think I was 33, and I'm needing a father figure. So I go up to this couple the next day, and I go up to the guy, and I was like, "Hey, thank you. I think that conversation sparked something in me. Um, I think I need a father figure. Can you be like a father figure to me?" And he's like, "Hey, buddy." He got a little uncomfortable. He's like, "Hey, buddy, if you need a father figure, you should go to my dad." I'm like, "Who's your daddy?" And he's like, "Jesus is the way to the father that you're looking for." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. Like, I'm chill. I don't, I don't need no Jesus. I'm good. Maybe I just need a mentor." Then literally a few months after, okay. Now pay attention because when you can find the meaning in the randomness, you'll find the message from God, right? A few months after, this is February 2022. I'm sure people know Patrick Bet-David. If you don't know, he's like the founder and CEO of a company called Valuetainment, big media company, sold his insurance company for $500 million or $250 million, excuse me. And he moves from Texas to Florida around the same time that I moved from Jersey to Florida. And we know of each other, and he invites me to have dinner with him and come to his house. And he owns the largest residential property in Fort Lauderdale. And so we we get together, takes me out to dinner with his right hand man. At that time, they wanted to recruit me to have my own show on their platform, Valuetainment, and I said no. And he's like, "What do you mean? You got the it factor, you got your charismatic." I was like, "Nah, social media has become socialist media. Anything you could say could be held against you. I'm not interested." You know. And he's like, "Ah, that sounds clever, but you got to think much bigger. You got to you got to see the 20-year vision." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll think about it." And then he, in his infamous way, he pulls down his blade. He's like, "So what do you want?" I was like, "You want me to be honest with you?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, I want a father figure." And he was like shocked by what I said because we were just talking about business, politics, the whole thing. And he's like, "Hey, buddy, listen, if you want a father figure, just go to my dad." I'm like, "Who's your daddy?" And then he's like, "Jesus." He pulls out his cross. And it's like, "Jesus is the way to the Father that you're looking for." I'm like, "I'm good. No thanks." And he tells me his whole testimony, how he was an atheist in Iran and the whole
Yeah.
nine. And I'm like, maybe we'll revisit the conversation next month. And I know we'll come to how much time do we have on this?
We
Are
got
we good on time?
we got about another 15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So next month, I take my family out to Disney World and I bring my in-laws too. And on our way from Boca to Orlando, my kids get sick all at the same time, like diarrhea, fever, and throwing up all at once. We had to stop like multiple times to the gas station just to clean things up. We finally get to the hotel. We're in the lobby. We're exhausted. And I'm like, "Babe, let's just get some rest. We'll figure out what we're gonna do tomorrow. I'll watch the night shift. You get some rest." Right. And so it's after midnight. This is March 15th. It's my daughter's birthday. So technically it's after midnight, it's March 16th. So I open up my laptop and I go on Amazon Prime to kill some time. And I see two documentaries right in front. One is called Show Me the Father, the other is called Father of Lights. So I'm like, what's this? So I watch both. And again, to make a long story even longer, they're both pointing to Jesus. I get so triggered. I'm like, what is this? Like, why is everything about Jesus? Like, why couldn't it be about statistics? Why couldn't it just be about the divorce rates? Why couldn't it be you just need mentors? Like, why does it have to be about Jesus? Why is everybody trying to shove Jesus down my throat? I'm not interested, right? So, out of like anger and frustration internally, I say, all right, Jesus, if you're the only way to the Father that I'm looking for, I'll accept you under one condition. Give me 1,000 miracles this year, then I'll know for sure that you're the only way to this Father, right? Now, the reason why I say it like that is because I'm a student of the world. I've studied different schools of thought. So for me to be exclusively one thing, I needed undeniable proof. Like it doesn't, nobody can quote scripture and convert me. I've had too many people try to do that. No, I need an encounter, like something real.
Yep.
That morning, I wake up, none of my kids are sick. It was as if they were not sick. So we are like, oh, I guess we're staying here. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, wait, is this the miracle? One, two, three. Okay. Then after that, as we're walking in Disney World, people were letting us cut the line. Like all these rides, just letting us cut the line, cut the line, cut the line. Then we finally get to like a cafeteria. We're sitting down, our kids are hungry, I'm hungry. Then all of a sudden, oh my cat, I don't know if you can hear the meowing, so forgive me in advance. All of a sudden, a family comes up to us and they're like, I don't know what it is, but the glory of God is on your family, you know? And then another stranger comes up and they're like, Jesus is chasing you. And I'm like, what the world? My wife thought it was weird. I didn't even tell her what was happening, like what I said internally,
Right.
right? So we think something is trippy. And in my mind, I'm trying to like, wait, is this like part of is this part of the miracle? Like, I don't understand what's happening, but I'm like, my eyes were open, my heart was open, and I was like, okay, let me pay attention. So then we get back home that weekend, and this will come to a close right here. We get back home and I go on my social media, my Instagram, and I post on my social media. I'm like, I just watched these two documentaries. They were very interesting, very like food for thought. One lady messages me. She goes, "Oh, one of my mentors is actually in that documentary." She's like, "You can book a call with him. Here's his link." So I get on this call with this guy, and I don't like to make mention of certain people, you know, because there's a lot of controversy in the body of Christ and stuff like that. So I like to keep it like whoever God uses, he uses, period. Right. And so I I get on this guy's calendar, and this guy was like, you're the guy that God told me about. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm thinking this is like in a form of NLP, you know, trying to control the frames or something like that. He's like, no, no, no. I was fasting last month, and God told me that a man from many nations was going to get on a call with me, that I had to bring you home because you have a lot of work to do. And I'm like, yeah, but that could be anybody. You know, he's like, he told me you'd be skeptical, but he told me to ask you, what's your story? Where are you from? So I tell him, you know, I'm born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, to a Muslim Syrian father, Buddhist Thai mother, raised in the United States by an Iraqi family. I'm married to a Dutch and Italian woman, and our kids look like the United Nations one family. He's like, you're the one. You're the one. You're the guy. He's like, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? I'm like, no. But it's funny that you say that because, you know, last week, this is what ended up happening. And he's like, okay, the miracles are going to come. You just need to have this one conversation and come home. Okay. And I'm like, all right. So he takes him to the Lord's Prayer. And I felt like a weight taken off of me. And then he was just like, get ready because God is about to do something you've never seen or witnessed in your life. I'm like, okay. Then God did. He showed up and showed out. And if I like, we can have probably, and I'm sure like, listen, you're spirit filled. You have to understand, I've never read the Bible. So my encounter was like a Saul to Paul,
Yeah.
right? I had an encounter where I couldn't explain it, and it took months until I finally opened up the Bible to be like, "Oh, that's what happened. Oh, that's what I'm saying when I'm praying. I didn't even realize that was called tongues. Oh, that's what this is." So like things were happening to me. Like I got baptized by the Holy Spirit and fire first before I even opened up the Bible, right? It took about 7 months or 8 months afterwards for me to go through the word to realize what was happening spiritually in my life. And I was like, oh, these are the spiritual gifts in First Corinthians chapter 12. Oh, this is what prophecy means. So like it was really interesting because it was backwards for me. And but it confirmed so much for me to the point where now I understand. Like I look back at my life, hindsight is 2020. And Steve Jobs says you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And I tell people like in this day, especially when I'm mentoring them, I'm like, have you ever played chess? Like, Coach JC, have you ever played chess?
Yes.
What's the most powerful piece on the chessboard?
The king.
Now, most people would say the king. Some would say the queen. I would argue it's the pawn. And the question is, it's not about the piece, but it's the hand that's moving the piece,
Come on.
right? The pawn is usually seen as the living sacrifice,
Come on.
usually the one that's first in line of battle, and it's the first one to be sacrificed, right?
Come on.
But if God's hand is moving the pawn, which we all are,
Come on.
right? He's positioning you in your enemy's jurisdiction strategically so
Come
that
on.
when you're finally in the camp of your enemy, you transform into the queen. And when you're transformed into the queen, you are protecting the most valuable piece on that chessboard, which is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.
Come on.
We're called the bride of Christ, right? And so we are his queen in that sense as the body. As Christ is the head, we are the body. As he is the groom, the bridegroom, we are his bride, right? And so now, like what I'm seeing happening, I see like God is calling a harvest of pawns, of living sacrifices, and not the knights, not the castles, not the people who are in the position where they can provide, but the people who are usually the first line in battle, who are brave enough to be like, all right, send me here, like Isaiah 6, here I am, send me, Lord,
Come on.
right? And I feel like that's been my call. And the harvest of souls is happening, and he's calling certain people like you, like me, even people who were in ministry in the very beginning, but then were church hurt, and then they left out and they went into the marketplace and wanted to focus the business. God is calling them back home, in the marketplace there, which is like everything that I'm doing right now, especially like Fruitful Father Ministries, right? We were talking about that. That wasn't the name that I wanted to give this ministry. That was the name that God gave it. Like I thought Fruitful Father Ministry was too fruity. I'm like, I'm like, hey, listen, like God, like I've built brands, like fruitful. It doesn't, I don't get it. But I didn't know his word enough to understand the significance of bearing fruit. The Bible says in John 15:16, you didn't choose me, I chose you. So and appointed you so that you can go out and produce lasting fruit. That whatever you ask in my Father's name, he shall give you,
Come on.
right? And by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, that you become my disciples.
Come
And
on.
so Fruitful Father Ministries is basically a clarion call, a wake-up call to those who don't feel qualified, but are ready to be qualified by God because they're chosen, right? They're chosen in the pro. You didn't choose me, I chose you so that you can go out and produce lasting fruit. And so, like everything that I'm doing right now, which kind of seems backwards, because on the business side, if it was up to me, I wouldn't be doing ministry. I wouldn't be writing this type of book. Like I would just be focusing on working with high net worth, individuals, affluent families, and doing my thing. But what I didn't realize that God was doing behind closed doors in the hidden season that I've been in and I'm still in is that he was preparing me for my inheritance.
Come on.
Everything that I went through with my father, who I thought I was going to receive that inheritance. When I read the Bible, I don't even see it as a religious text. I see it as my father's last will and testament
Come
for
on.
me to claim my inheritance in adoption through sonship, through Jesus Christ, right? And so now I have a different point of view when I'm reading my will and testament. It's a trust, if you will, and Jesus is the trustee and we're the beneficiaries of the whole thing. And so everything that I'm seeing right now, it's like it's an equipping. Like I'm the vision for Father Ministries is to transform 1,000 business leaders to save 1 billion souls by 2030, to empower these leaders to win more souls and finance his kingdom, right? I'm just one guy, but God wants to do multiply, be fruitful and multiply. He wants to do it much bigger. I saw a vision where I saw a stadium. Think of like a Grant Cardone stadium, a 10X stadium, right? Like that. But I saw people in like business suits and people tatted up and everything like that, mostly men. But I saw them all giving their life to the Lord. and being used mightily for God's glory. I feel like I'm just one pawn out of many pieces in God's chessboard that he's repositioning so that we can all be called into his bride and to his body. We're literally remembering ourselves back into the body we once belonged to. Like he chose us. We're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. Right? And he's calling us back according to his name in that process so that we can go bear fruit and be his disciples along the way. Anyway,
Come
Holy
on,
Spirit
baby.
convicted to
Oh man, I love it. I could go on all day. I could go on all day. And I want to give some time and talk about the book that's Maurice. Before I go there, I
yeah.
just feel led today for you to share, man. Like there's questions that popped up. There's so many things I felt like I wanted to ask, but I'm like, you know what? I just felt led. You just need to share your heart today. I feel like that's what the listeners and the viewers needed. And I want to say this. This is what came to me when you were just talking, and it's this. I think what I love about your story and what I know is going to hit home for many of the listeners and the viewers, and many of you right now, don't miss this. It's this simple, I believe, but life-changing truth.
Mm,
And it's this: even when you may not be pursuing God, even
mm,
when you may feel lost, even when you've maybe walked away, even
mm.
when you maybe turned your back, here's the most powerful truth you've got to understand today: that God never left you. He was
Amen.
there the entire time, just like he was in Yahya's life. And you're hearing this testimony the entire time, watching, waiting, protecting, guiding. And when you finally get to a place where you open your eyes, but most importantly, your heart, right? He never stopped pursuing you. That's the kind of father that me and Yahya are talking about right now. He said many times he was seeking in the natural, right? Hey, I want a father figure. And oh, who's your daddy? I want a father figure. Who's your daddy? Right?
Right.
Like we serve a God who is your daddy, who is your father, one who's faithful even when we're not, who never gives up on his kids. You heard a story where Yaya's dad almost disowned him, and it was a hurtful situation and all of that. Man, listen, sometimes the people we love the most in the natural, family, friends, it could be spouse, business partners, they will walk away and betray. And
Yeah.
the pain can run deep, but God never will. He doesn't walk away even when it's hard, even when you abandon him. He doesn't turn his back on you. So it made me think of the one verse in Deuteronomy that says, the Lord will never leave you nor forsake you.
Yeah.
That's a covenant. That's a covenant. That's where others may have left you and walked away, and you're searching, and you might be like, yeah, looking for a father figure, a mother figure. God can step into and say, hey, listen, I'm here. I've been here. I'm not going anywhere. When you feel abandoned by man, let that be a reminder that you never were abandoned by God. His presence is your anchor. Like, you got to hear this message today. Don't miss it. His promise. This is a promise that he is your father in a time of need, and his love is unshakable. And
Amen.
so, I mean, I can't thank you enough for sharing from your heart. And I do want you to touch on, before we close today, you're releasing a book called Chosen. Why is this book important, and why must the reader get this book? And then absolutely tell everybody listening and watching how they can find this book as well.
Well, listen, I appreciate you for lending your platform to the listeners here, um, uh, to allow me to share my testimony. And I don't like vent out like that, but I felt you're spot on. I felt led to share because it's a lot to unpack. And I want my testimony to be a reminder that whatever you're growing through, whether you're in the pit or you feel like you're in the prison, like God's hand is on you and he's like you're chosen. And when you look at God's chosen, you look at Joseph, who God revealed himself in a dream, and he showed him two dreams where the whole family was going to bow down to him, right? His brothers, his parents, and they thought he was crazy. They sold him out to slavery, and he was in the pit, and then he was in the prison. He was locked up for about a good 13 years before that fulfillment of that dream, that prophecy came to pass, right? Look at David, who was anointed king. He was anointed by the oracle, the seer, the prophet Samuel. And when he anointed him as king, he was a boy. He was like 15, 16, 17. I don't know exactly, but he was a young buck. And God still, even though he rejected Saul, who was the king of Israel, and he chose David, he still used Saul to put David under submission because Saul carried the keys to David's inheritance and his blessing spiritually, right? And despite the fact that Saul wanted to kill him and wanted to accuse him and attack him and everything like that, David's heart posture still remained, Saul, you're the Lord's anointed, right? And so whatever you're growing through in this season, like I went through my pit in my 20s. I remember getting mad. The reason why I didn't want God, because I'm like, why would God allow me to go through this? What did I do? What did I do? So whatever your why are you going through this? Just know that God is doing something. There is a breaking before the multiplying, and you are being used as a living sacrifice in this process. It's a spiritual sacrifice. In First Peter chapter 2, it talks about how Jesus was the rejected stone, right? But so are you in that process. You became a living stone in that process. And we're a chosen generation and a royal priesthood because of the sacrifice that we're enduring, just like Jesus endured. So this book, Chosen, actually was written in divine inspiration. I wasn't planning on writing this book, but because I had another idea for a book, but this was done like within a 24-hour time period. And I wanted to, like, when this book was written, I was like, because here's another thing: give yourself permission to be imperfect, because your imperfections make you influential when you're under God,
Come on.
right? And so, like, in my mind, I thought, like, well, you know what, I'm gonna write this book, it's gonna be 300 pages. And I was like, who am I writing this book for? Is it for my ego, or is it for me to be in service, right? And then I realized, it's like, I have a bunch of books that I've never even read, not because I don't want to. It's just life gets in the way. I don't make the time, whatever excuses, fill in the blank, right? I wanted this book to get in the hands of someone who could read it within 2 hours if they wanted to, or doesn't have to rush the process of transformation. And I didn't want it to be something that can build their self-esteem with another book on their shelves, right? Or someone who struggles with infobesity and just wants more information with no transformation. I wanted something that they can get their hands on, they can read it, and it could prepare them. The subtitle is Your Guide to Becoming Who God Called You to Be. And whether you think, you know God or whatever, just get your hands on this, because this is the process of pruning, right? When God calls you, he takes you through a process, and you know this better than anybody. There's the calling, there's the colleging, and there's the commissioning. And this is something that I wish I knew, or someone told me about when I was called, because I went through my honeymoon phase. And then I kept hearing people talk about being church hurt, and I'm like, what does that mean? And I experienced my share of being church hurt pretty quickly. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. I get it now. And this is something that, for those who are not just called to be believers, but called to be disciples and leaders, who are not just who believe in Jesus because of salvation, but who are being equipped and empowered for their kingdom assignment. This book was written for those who are chosen for an assignment, and they want to become who God has called them to be in the process. So, if you go on Amazon, or if you go to yahyabakkar.com, it'll lead directly to Amazon. Just type in Chosen Yahya Bakkar, and you'll get it. And I didn't write this to be a moneymaker for me. Like, I could care less. This is my third book that I've written. But I haven't written a book in, I think, 12 years or some change, or 15, 13 years. And so when I wrote this book, I just wanted it to be a tool and an asset for people who wanted to take their walk with the Lord more seriously, more intimately, under his authority. And so, yeah, I'm proud of it. Not because I feel like I wrote it, but I feel like he wrote it for me. That's why I'm proud of it.
I love it. You are chosen, my brother. And again, this conversation is different than most of the podcasts we've done. I think the audience and the viewers will hear this. I'm just grateful you shared a part of your story, and I just want to say this before we get off, and close this. You mentioned Joseph in the Bible, and what came to me when you said that is, and I'm speaking this over you. You're a
Amen.
modern day Joseph. And I
Yes.
feel like the word that's come to me for you is like that you're going to be trusted with influence in high places.
Amen.
And your purity and your surrender is what is going to make you powerful. And so I think God's just continuing to tug on my heart to tell you, like, as you continue, you got to place him first at the center. Delight yourself in the Lord, and I'll give you the desires of your heart. He's going to continue to place you in front of kings.
Amen.
And you're not just a man with a message. I believe you're a messenger, and not just of a movement that maybe you think it's one movement. I see multiple movements. You're
Amen.
called, you're anointed, you're anointed to build what others, I believe, are afraid to attempt to build. So be the pioneer, be the kingdom architect. And,
Amen.
and you were chosen, my guy. I believe your voice is going to awaken the sleeping sons. Your story is going to heal the broken fathers, and your legacy will be fruitful and it will multiply, not just in your family, but in nations to come. This is just the beginning for you, my winning brother. So we're excited, and I'm just honored to have this conversation. My brother from another mother, chosen. Guys, you got to go get the book. And this is Yahya Bakkar. Where can they find you on social media, or spell out your website for them so they know exactly where to go one more time, my brother?
Well, first of all, thank you again for inviting me and sharing me with your audience. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with your character. I think some people on social media who might not know you, they can judge a book by its cover, and they can be like, if you've gotten any, negativity online from people who don't like positive energy, they can be like, ah, this guy's just, all hype, no, but there's a massive substance in your presence, and I can tell God has been cooking you for quite some time. And I pray that more and more people will get to learn from you and hear the wisdom that God has already deposited into your spirit, both in the marketplace, but also ministry. I see God using you in a mighty, mighty way in ministry as well. And your calling is very similar. It's a dual anointing, right? For marketplace and ministry. And God will continue to send you greater people who've allowed a crisis to bring them closer to Christ, right? There are people, I'm seeing God sending you people who their deals went south. There are certain things there were delays in certain deals that were not going through in real estate. I'm seeing it in other aspect of business, and they're seeking counsel from you, and they're going to trust you to give them wisdom that is not of this world. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, Apostle Paul talks about the difference between wisdom of men and wisdom of God. And there's going to be a wisdom of God that's going to be deposited in them as they're navigating their crises that's going to bring them closer to Christ. And so I pray that your voice increases even more, and that, when you mentioned you went to Oral Roberts University, I don't know much, but I know Oral Roberts was like a general in the faith, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he's already been cooked in that process. I'm catching up to what you've already been growing into. So thank you again for having me, and I wish I could have made it to your event, but I'm sure there's going to be another opportunity where we get to circle back. So for those of you who want to follow me online or check me out on social media, it's Yahya Bakkar, YAHYAB as in boy, AKKAR, and that's .com. That's on social media as well. And then the ministry is Fruitful Father Ministries on social media, or fruitfulfather.org. And check us out if you want to show up. I do Tuesday services. Again, it's a discipleship ministry for marketplace leaders. It's every Tuesday. You can go to joinusinboca.com, and it's free. It's for anyone and everyone who wants to grow in the word and become who God has called them to be. So that's
I
it.
love it. I love it. This is Coach JC. This is the Win All Day podcast show. Yahya Bakkar, you are chosen. Listeners, viewers, you are chosen. And Yahya, we like to end every show this way, man. If you could say, I am Yahya Bakkar. I am a winner. I will win and win all day. I am Yahya Bakkar. I am a winner. I will win and win all day. Can you do that?
Of course. I am Yahya Bakkar. I am a winner. I win, and I win all day, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, once again, this is Coach JC, Yahya Bakkar. Thanks again for listening, guys. I want to remind you one last time, you are a winner. So go win and win all day. Who loves you? We do. We'll get at you next time.